Welcome to our session on reimagining the employee experience in a hybrid workplace. I'm Liza Town with SolvereHR. A little bit about Solvere before we jump in. Our mission is to elevate small businesses and nonprofit workplaces. We serve as a thought partner to enhance your HR and people strategy. Then we roll up our sleeves to execute on that plan. Our core services include HR consulting, HR project support, training design and delivery, and diversity recruiting. Let's start out by talking about the evolution of the hybrid workplace. According to a survey from Zippia, 74% of U.S. companies surveyed either are currently using or plan to implement a permanent hybrid work model. 47% of these companies offered a hybrid plan before the COVID-19 pandemic, while 27% have implemented one during the pandemic and plan to make that a permanent change. So with this shift in working models, allowing for hybrid work is really no longer about staying competitive. It's about not falling behind. The data shows lots of employers are moving to a hybrid model, but how do you do it well? Examples of proximity bias in the workplace might include managers rating the work of on-site employees more highly than remote employees, regardless of objective performance metrics. It could look like interesting projects or development opportunities being offered first to those working in the immediate vicinity of company seniors, or employees working from home or satellite offices being unintentionally excluded from an important meeting held at the headquarters without adequate provision for remote attendance. Why does proximity bias matter? First, we see lower staff engagement when proximity bias is present in the workplace. Staff who don't feel recognized can become less engaged in their work. And if you want your company to excel, staff engagement matters. Research shows that engaged teams are 21% more profitable, 17% more productive, and score 10% higher on customer ratings as well. Next, we see less robust business decisions being made. If you only involve on-site workers in important meetings and decisions, you risk making suboptimal business choices that fail to include the full knowledge, experience, and perspectives of your wider workforce. For more robust strategy and decisions, business leaders should include all those able to add value and ensure that IT provisioning and other commitments allow this to happen. Finally, we see less workforce diversity, with higher numbers of women and workers in minority ethnic groups among those who have traditionally chosen to work remotely at least part of the time. Losing competent remote workers from a company can easily mean that you lose perspectives and experiences from these groups disproportionately. A less diverse workforce can lead to groupthink, poorer problem solving, and less long-term business resilience. Here are 4 ways to overcome proximity bias. Number 1, develop inclusive ways of working. In companies where meetings remain an important avenue for sharing information or for making decisions, remote workers need to be included as part of business as usual. In some organizations, this could mean making all important meetings virtual. Even on-site workers could log in from their desks. At a minimum, it should at least mean that the option to attend a meeting remotely is always in place. Opening up decision-making beyond a single meeting is another inclusive working tool which tackles proximity bias. Facilitating multiple and potentially asynchronous inputs via collaborative working tools, email, or phone calls captures a wider range of views and expertise. This may then lead to more robust decisions, which are understood and backed by more of the workforce. Be intentional about social inclusion. Team building and social activities should also include those that are not on site during core hours. Some companies organize both virtual and real-life activities, or they alternate between the two. Others mix real and virtual activities, maybe quizzes with on-site or virtual participation. Asynchronous and remote workers can take part in a series of events or ongoing activities, such as fantasy football, with remote or locally organized sessions or teams. Number 3, proactive and inclusive communication is key. Managers can be proactive in challenging their own proximity bias by communicating equally but differently with all staff, rather than focusing on their on-site workers by default and others as an afterthought. They should plan and structure their communication to offer the same level of management oversight and support to all through the most appropriate means for each team member or group of individuals. This might mean delivering the same message through multiple channels for on-site and remote workers, allowing time to use a collaborative working platform to engage asynchronous workers in other countries, and making themselves available for any team contacts and questions at regular times or on regular channels. And finally, put some focus into reskilling employees and managers to set them up for success. We'll get into more detail on this particular topic later on in our session. Instead of having arbitrary rules around the number of days that employees are expected to be in the office, consider being more intentional about why employees need to be in the office. Anchor the expectation to be in the office around value-added activities that maximize the time employees are in the office. For example, McKinsey shared this table to describe activities that are still best done in person. Things like fostering new relationships and informal connections, creating inclusion, etc., social networking, informal mentoring, new hire onboarding, solutioning sprints for a product team. These are all examples of things that really should be done in person for hybrid workers when at all possible. Things you don't see on this list include team meetings, one-on-ones, individual work time. These items are perfectly fine to do in a remote environment if we're taking up office time with activities that are much more value added. When we consider the complexities of a hybrid model, it's important to embrace a fluid working model that ensures work can be done just as effectively in a remote location as it can be done when in an office location. When done well, employees will have flexibility to maximize both places to accomplish their work as desired. Shifting to a hybrid work model means a natural shift in how coworkers interact with each other, communicate, collaborate, and connect. The methods used to be successful in these critical areas in an in-office environment are sometimes very different than the methods used to be successful in a remote or a hybrid working environment. When evaluating your hybrid work model, we recommend including employees in the design of your hybrid work model. Involving employees in shaping your future workplace ensures all perspectives are considered, reveals employee needs and priorities, and will ultimately help gain buy-in for the final workforce model. Following an inclusive and collaborative approach will go a long way towards retaining employees. To accomplish this, consider discussing the following with employees. Number 1, what worked and what didn't work about our model pre-pandemic? What worked and what didn't work about our model during the pandemic? How do we want to work together going forward? What are best practices that we can pull through in our future state? And finally, what are the lessons learned that we could correct in our future state? Your employees, I guarantee, will have a lot of opinions about these ideas and questions. Rethinking our efforts at social inclusion requires intention. The absence of connections can leave employees feeling isolated and disconnected from the organization, resulting in lower levels of performance and contribution. Building culture and connection for distributed teams requires an intentional, structured approach. This is a shift from informal connections that naturally take place when all employees are together in the office. Consider your culture around building and maintaining connections before the pandemic. How did your organization, teams, and individuals connect? How can you now translate those into a hybrid working environment versus just not doing them at all? Traditional social connections that used to happen at work, like employee birthday lunches, impromptu happy hours after work, and all in-person team meetings, cannot happen with all employees in a virtual or a hybrid working environment. So we want to take a look at technology-based social connections. What can we do to maximize online engagement? There are many new online engagement tools that have hit the market during the pandemic, all designed to help you stay connected with and engage with your remote or hybrid workforce. We really love tools like Rumblesome, TinyPulse, and Waggle. Consider still having morning team huddles on Mondays, a virtual coffee connection at the team level to share weekend adventures and align on critical priorities for the week. These are still things that can be done in a virtual Zoom or Teams meeting, etc. Consider virtual happy hours. Schedule a monthly virtual happy hour that promotes casual connections. Keep the group small, 10 or less employees is great, either at a team level or a cross-department mix of employees to promote new connections. Incent employees to participate by offering a gift card, prizes, beverage delivery or reimbursement, and things like that. Consider implementing multi-method communication flows. The communication methods that are effective in an in-office environment are different than the methods that are effective in a distributed or a remote environment. Hired's study of tech professionals found that more than half of U.S. tech workers would feel more comfortable with remote work if their employer set clear expectations around responsiveness and communication in virtual workspaces. So a few steps that you can take: consider shifting away from informal communication channels as a method to distribute information. An effective communication flow should intentionally support a hybrid workplace by taking different communication channels into account. Start by evaluating your current communication flows. How do your employees find out and share information today? Then determine what the communication flow and agreements should be to maximize your future state working model. And a couple best practices when it comes to building out a communication strategy for a hybrid work model. Consider that meetings should be either all virtual or all in person. Blended meetings and trainings can be really difficult for remote team members to hear everything that's being said, understand the nonverbal cues that their coworkers may be giving that they can't necessarily see on the video. It can be difficult for them to get their points across, etc. Also, remember, if you're having all remote video meetings, they are the new normal. Employees are becoming more and more used to interacting over tools like Teams or Zoom, etc. And finally, consider coaching leaders to utilize your new technology to reach all team members. Remember to always keep an eye out for that proximity bias creeping back in. We've talked a lot about strategy and design of a really great dynamic virtual or hybrid working environment. But it's also important to think about the skills that our employees might need in order to be very successful in this environment. Consider establishing working norms and codify knowledge, structure, process, and support mechanisms. Maximizing technology and digital automation to accomplish this is a must. The increase in technology, automation, and new ways of working points to the need for organizations to invest in building skills in their leaders and employees. Both of these groups require enhanced technology skills to be able to work and collaborate in increasingly virtual environments. Consider coaching and training employees on how to be successful in a remote environment. A little bit more on maximizing technology for success. Technology is the anchor that ensures work can be performed equally as effectively in a remote location as it can be in the office. It's really critical to establish technology-driven processes, digital automation, and support mechanisms to ensure productivity is maintained. Evaluate your process and maximize technology to access where and how information is found. Some tips are to store documents in a centralized place that is easily accessible to employees no matter where they're working. Use collaborative tools such as Google Docs to drive virtual asynchronous collaboration and iteration. And consider a knowledge base for frequently asked questions and how-to reference guides. Leading teams in a distributed workforce brings on a new set of skills required by leaders. To effectively lead virtual teams, managers need to learn how to ensure accountability, performance, and productivity without being able to walk around and visually see their employees perform the work. When there are not office walls to keep people together, personal relationship skills become ever more important. A couple critically necessary leadership skills include relationship skills, goal setting and tracking progress, employee development and advancement, and creating inclusion, belonging, and connection through resiliency, conscious, multi-method communication, and virtual hiring practices. A recent Deloitte survey states that more than 50% of respondents say it's less difficult for employees to find a job outside of their organization than inside of it. While recruiting outside talent is an essential part of improving and growing a business, many companies overlook the most promising talent within their company, leaving their internal talent pool untapped. This challenge is further intensified in a hybrid remote work environment where proximity bias is a common occurrence when internal structures don't exist or are simply inadequate. Grounding your talent strategy with strong employee development and advancement programs and practices are critical to overcoming this unconscious bias and creating equitable advancement opportunities for all employees. In order to create equitable advancement opportunities, we have to minimize the number of positions that are required to be in office. This would exclude hybrid or remote workers from consideration unless they are willing to completely change their work-life balance and their lifestyle. We should ensure that internal postings are kept in a place where remote employees can easily access them. So postings on a bulletin board in the office will not suffice for employees that are no longer always in the office. Also consider creating mentoring and coaching opportunities for all employees, including virtual employees. Virtual hiring. This can be a new field for a lot of hiring managers. Research on tech employees by Hired found that for 70% of candidates, having a choice of work location is a key consideration for evaluating job opportunities. More than 3/4 of candidates in the same study said they would accept a job offer without physically visiting the office. That said, what should recruiters and hiring managers look to change in the process? Take time to reevaluate your hiring practices to ensure that you're mirroring the type of environment and culture that you want to cultivate in your workplace. What are the things that managers should be looking for to assess fit in a hybrid work model? Does the candidate have experience working in a hybrid or a virtual work environment? This may not be an absolute deal breaker, but it can help you understand if the candidate has worked remotely before and what that remote work experience looked like, how it aligns with your team's remote work expectations, and whether there's any disconnect or there's an alignment between the candidate's experiences and your expectations. Next, ask the candidate why they want to work remotely. This will ensure that their motivation fits the position's needs. And finally, don't forget to assess remote work-related skills. For example, we want to assess their communication. Check for spelling and grammar in the job application, how thoroughly and clearly they answered the screening questions, and also pay attention to communication skills during video calls. Autonomy. Note how effectively the candidate follows instructions when completing screening assignments and how confident they appear when working independently. And finally, check for any role-specific skill gaps. Ask the candidate to complete job-relevant skills tests that are closely aligned with on-the-job tasks. Pay attention to the quality of work, clarity of communication, and their presentation skills.
Liza, thank you so much for that great information on how to create working environments for this new world that we live in. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Russell. I'm the founder and president of Fall River Employee Benefits. And we are going to talk a little bit about reimagining your benefit strategies as well. It turns out that we really need to rethink how we do benefits at the same time we rethink our working environments, because the expectations have completely shifted and status quo benefits simply just aren't going to be enough to help you attract and retain the talent that you need. So we're going to do two things. We're going to show you 2 ways to achieve significant savings on your healthcare plans, which is then going to fund the benefit enhancement that you need. And we'll show you how to spend those savings most effectively to enhance your package and meet the demands of today's labor market. I can get my cursor to work. All right. So employers are super frustrated with healthcare. So, we're just helping employers get better benefits for less money, using the difference to create better packages that attract and retain, help you become a hero to your employees and an employer of choice. We're nationwide, but we work like a local boutique firm, and we have some ideas that our clients tell us is different from what they're hearing. We focus on benefits because there's a couple of reasons. First is that benefits connote emotional security. And so, you not only, a paycheck is very important. It's got to be competitive, but benefits give that feeling that you really care for your employees. And so that has some added stickiness. Also, anytime you can invest in mental health or physical health for that matter, this pays for itself in increased productivity. And then finally, benefits are just more tax efficient because most benefits are in fact tax-free. So one of the challenges that is keeping employers from doing better on their benefits is that this is actually turning out to be a really tough renewal year for most employers. These headwinds that we're seeing in the industry mean that many of you are getting one of the toughest renewals you've gotten in a while. Some of that's due to COVID, the delayed care, the catch-up care, long COVID claims. Some of it's due to things that have been around for a long time, like new gene therapies, new hugely expensive specialty drugs. Some of it's due to the change in inflation, where, healthcare worker wages are going up, medical supply costs are going up, all that has to be factored into the cost of your healthcare. Finally, now that people can work from anywhere, you are possibly having to maintain an additional network that you didn't used to have to maintain. You could do a super skinny network like, say, United Healthcare Navigate network, or you could use an Anthem Blue Cross HMO plan. Now you're going to probably need to keep at least one nationwide network for your employees that work out of state now that you can hire people from anywhere. But there are some key success factors that we see that if you run your benefit plan in this way, that you are going to be more successful than average. The maxim that we talk about a lot is to run your health plan the way you run your business. Because if we ran our businesses the way most companies run their health plans, we'd all be out of business. So, we talk to employers about, what are your strategies for the coming year to dominate your market and, be profitable. And they'll lay out, a 5-point strategy. Here's our metrics, here's our targets. But then we ask them, well, how are you going to manage your health plan this year? And they're like, oh God, I don't know. I just hope we don't get too bad of a renewal. Hope is not a strategy when it comes to healthcare. You need a sustainable year-round strategy and to run your health plan with just as much attention and metrics as you do your business, because it's probably your second or third largest expense. So what does that look like to run it like a business? Have corporate and executive endorsement that this is part of your strategy, that you're going to help people get healthier. You're going to teach them to be better consumers of healthcare, and you're going to create a plan that is attractive so that you can recruit and retain the talent that you need. One of the things that we think helps with that is you've got to aim to have at least one of your medical plans be completely free or very low cost to employees. The benchmarks say that the average, median plan out there, the employer is still charging a single person $100 or even more. But that's not going to cut it in this labor market anymore. The labor market has shifted faster than benefits have, and you've got to keep up. A latest survey indicates that 70% of small and mid-size and large employers are enhancing their benefits this year. And so if you're not, then that's an area where you could be falling behind. So having that free medical plan, using account-based plans that are going to have a rollover feature to create the right incentives. And we'll talk a little bit later about why that's so important. Incenting your members to use the highest quality care, because it turns out the very best doctors are actually cheaper in the long run. So we're going to talk about how you do that. And then finally, you need a comprehensive employee communication strategy. So not just around open enrollment, but all the time. What is your platform for engaging and communicating with your employees in ways that actually can reach them? You need a texting platform. You need an ability to do flash surveys. All of that kind of stuff is important around benefits, but also in general. So that's something that we're starting to talk to a lot of our clients about, is a platform that will enable them to do all of that. But that's out of scope for today. Today, we're going to focus on 2 strategies to help you get better benefits for less money. Now, you may be just like the employers in that survey that say, we're not trying to save money, we're trying to improve our benefits. The whole idea is that you create the savings first, and then you spend the savings to create a better plan. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So strategy number 1 is to repurpose the dollars that you are already spending on benefits and rearrange them in a different way that's more financially efficient. Strategy number 2 is to incent your employees to see the highest quality docs. And so we'll talk about something we've designed called the Top Doctors Incentive Plan. So those are the 2 strategies we're going to go into, and we'll start right away with repurposing healthcare spend. So you've got to improve your benefits to compete in this labor market, but we know that money is actually real and that you have a budget that you have to live in. So rather than being in this tug of war between finance, it's like we have to meet this bottom line number, and HR says we got to take care of our people. We want to help you find a way that both parties are aligned and on the same page, and both getting, we want to help you lower your spend while getting the same or better benefits. Now, how is this even possible? If there were savings, surely your broker would have found them by now, right? What we're doing is we're exploiting some little known actuarial facts about the way your plan is made up. I'm an actuary by background, so I love to nerd out on this kind of stuff. What happens is that while you need rich benefits to attract and retain people, not everybody on your team is actually benefiting from the super rich plan that you might have. For example, let's say you have a $500 deductible plan, pretty low out of pocket, that's awesome, but not everybody's even getting the benefit of it. I'm going to use the example of a $2,000 high deductible health plan, or an HDHP plan with a $2,000 deductible. That's actually a really rich plan, but the crazy reality is that 70% of your members, according to this plain chart, are not even hitting that $2,000 threshold. So your deductible could have been $2,000 or it could have been $8,000 for those members. It doesn't actually make a difference. Now, I would never recommend that you have an $8,000 out of pocket for your employees, but there's a way to redesign your plans in a way that is more financially efficient while still giving them really rich plans. So how do we do that? We do that with account-based plans. So we want you to have really rich plans. That's absolutely what you need right now to recruit employees. It's not enough to just say, we've got a bronze plan, we've met the minimum, good enough. You're not going to get talent that way. But the way that we've been purchasing rich plans by using really low deductibles and really low out of pockets and these very rich copay plans are not effective financially. There is a better way to achieve these. And so what we recommend is that you use account-based plans to achieve the same rich benefits, but at a significantly lower cost. What also happens as a result of this is that your employees are going to get upfront dollars to cover the claims, so that almost everybody is benefiting from your plan right away, and they start to feel more of a connection with the plan as well because they're getting those upfront dollars. When we do this, the savings can be pretty extraordinary. We have been keeping kind of a running scorecard of customers that we've done this for, and right now our average is running around $1,400 per employee per year that we can pull out of the health plan while still having the same quality of benefit. So then you can use that $1,400 to enhance their benefits. Can you imagine what you could do with your wellness program with $1,400, or what you could do, with mental health care, or, you could fund a direct primary care membership with that. So there's a lot of ways to go about this. The savings are pretty powerful. So imagine a 100 employee company. We're expecting to save $100,000, $140,000 with this type of strategy. So here's how we would actually model that out. Let us show you an example of kind of high level of what the final outcome looked like for an employer that we modeled. So when you're repurposing the dollars, we're going to, there are three ways that you want to look at this. Number one, you got to just look at your status quo. What am I truly spending today per employee per year? And what's that going to be projected for the coming year? Could be because of all the factors we talked about earlier, you're getting a high projection this year. But regardless, look at your status quo. Then you want to look at it in two different ways. One is to use these account-based plans to identify the most savings you can possibly achieve while having an identical value of plan. It's really important to score these plans objectively, and we use actuarial tools to do that, because it's not fair to say, oh, we raised your deductible from $2,000 to $8,000. Of course we saved a bunch of money. That's almost like cheating, right? Unless it's the same value of the plan. So that's finding the best possible savings. Then we use those savings to create the best possible benefits. That might be using the savings to put a lot of upfront money into where the first $2,000 or $3,000 of someone's healthcare are totally paid for. You might be improving benefits by wiping out the premiums they have to pay out of their paychecks. With one client we just worked with, we were able to set the employee contributions to zero for a particular new style plan, and the family premiums that used to be about $750 a month are now about $350, which is going to be life-changing for some of those families. So there's lots of ways to enhance your benefits. We'll give you some more ideas later, but I want to just show the magnitude of the financial savings for this type of approach. What we've shown here is, those three scenarios: the status quo, which is the numbers highlighted in pink, the strategy A, which is finding the best, strategy A is the yellow lines, where you're finding the maximum savings that can be had while still keeping equivalent value of benefits. And then finally, strategy B are the numbers highlighted in blue, where we were able to enhance the plan significantly, yet we're still saving money versus the path that the employer was on. So in this particular example, the maximum savings that we could achieve in a given year was about $356,000. This was a double-digit savings for this employer. But more importantly, over a 5-year period, it was $2.6 million of savings. So these strategies, these account-based plan strategies, are very effective, not only because of what they save you in year one, but because they trend better over time and compound the savings. Strategy B is actually my favorite part of this slide, where even though we spent all of the year one savings, we put that $356,000 all back into the plan to dramatically improve the quality of benefits and lower what the employees had out of their paycheck. Even though we did that in year one and you don't see any savings for the initial plan year, the 5-year projected savings is still $800,000. Again, because these account-based plans trend better. So that just gives you an idea of all it takes is a little bit of thinking outside the box. And so I encourage you to go to your broker and say, hey, we want to do some rearranging. We understand that we could put in account-based plans while keeping the actuarial value of our plans the same. Please price that out for us. We think, the folks that we have modeled this for have been really intrigued by this. So encourage you to have that modeling done. If it could be done through your current broker, that's great. If they don't have that capability, we'd be happy to do that for any group that is headquartered in Colorado and is 100 or more employees. Okay, so that was a quick path through strategy number 1. Now we're going to talk about strategy number 2, which is incenting your employees to get the highest quality health care. So let's tell you a little bit about this Top Doctors Incentive Plan that we've developed. There are quality measures available from your carrier that your employees can use to find their health care. I've actually been talking to people about quality measures for 20 years, but they simply are not using them. Employees, as much as we educate about it, employees are not very likely to get there. And part of the reason is because the healthcare process just seems too difficult for them. This Harris poll said that 85% of people think it should be as easy to compare healthcare prices as it is for anything else. When you go on to kayak and do a plane ticket, it ought to be that easy to do for healthcare, but that's not the reality. 67% said every single step is a chore from start to finish. More importantly, in terms of the human impact, that means if you have an employee that gets diagnosed with something new, most employees have no idea where to start if they need to find a new doctor or if they need to find a specialist. So that's something that we're also trying to solve for in this process. So again, there are quality measures out there, but most of them are focused on getting people to the right hospital, the right medical group. Right now we incent people for going to the right building, right? If they go to that doctor practice, they are in the right building, they have met the in-network requirements. But really what you want your employees doing is going to the very best doctors. And that may be some of the doctors in that medical group, but not others. In-network status is not an indicator of quality. But what we've learned is that quality is all about the doctor. And so this is just an example. This is one of, the technology company that we partnered with to build this product is, has like 500 clinical measures of how they determine whether a doctor is high quality. It's all about following evidence-based medicine and achieving great patient outcomes. And so whether or not you get an infection at the surgical site after having colon surgery is just one random example out of these hundreds and hundreds of clinical measures. So obviously you want infections to be very low. So overall, if you go to a Denver hospital, PSL does the best job. Their infection rate is well below 20%, whereas at the other end of the spectrum, St. Joseph's is above 20%. And keep in mind, there's hundreds of these clinical measures, so this doesn't mean that St. Joseph is a worse hospital. But what this doesn't show you, though, is the information over on the graph on the right. Those blue top doctors at PSL actually fall all throughout the spectrum of whether or not the doctor themselves is the best. And so it really is important to drill down. And so that's something that's not easy for an employee to do on their own. So we've developed this in conjunction with this technology company that has done a lot of the legwork for this. We have this Top Doctors incentive plan. And again, there are quality style of plans out there. So totally, if your doctor, if your broker doesn't offer this, ask them what they do offer to help your employees get to better quality. Hopefully it's something that's going to be as easy and as motivating to get to as this. So, but here's how it would work. The idea is that 20 to 25% of the doctors that are in the network you already use are these wonderful, high quality top doctors that you really want your people seeing. There's no need to change your carrier, your network, your plan design, or anything to take advantage of this. This technology provides an easy way to find those top doctors. Mobile app, call a concierge team. Especially if you speak Spanish, you're going to want to speak to Spanish language concierges. You'll get an immediate incentive to actually use the top doctors, because that's the other thing is when we give people quality data, they don't always act on it. And so the incentive is earned when they use top doctors. And even on top of that incentive, the employer still saves money, because on average, the data shows that when employees use top doctors instead of average doctors, employers will save 27% per episode of care. Those are some really big dollars. Oh, sorry, I skipped one slide. So how does this actually work? The top doctor incentive is really going to fuel the employees going where you want them to go. It's a first dollar incentive, which means the first, say, $2,000 to $5,000 of their healthcare is completely provided for when they use the top doctors. And the vast majority of employees are going to experience zero disruption, because we can grandfather any of their primary care doctors. So it just overlays onto where you're at, and they can grandfather their PCP, their OBGYN, and all of their kids' pediatricians. So, that makes it really easy for employees to use, and you're still going to get the savings, because the real savings come through the top specialty doctors. The cost of the incentive is guaranteed, and so that's pre-funded and a known cost when you are looking at whether or not this is financially viable for you. You will see costs with the rates all in, so that there's no surprise. And the incentive is comprehensive, meaning anything that doctor orders is going to be covered completely at no cost. So none of this would be effective if it didn't also have a great employee experience. So with this particular technology company, the data is already in. The top doctors have already been identified. It's very easy to use. There are immediate savings that employers will experience when they put this type of plan in place, and it causes your claims to run better over time. So if you're in that 100 employee market and above, this is really going to be beneficial for heading off those tough renewals in the future. Employees, meanwhile, are getting, upfront healthcare paid for. They're getting better care. They have a concierge to call when they don't know who to go to, and they will be directed to the very best quality care. And it improves the satisfaction rates. So overall, across the entire experience with this technology company, we're seeing a 39% first year engagement rate. Given that a lot of people don't even ever need to see a specialist in a given year, that's a pretty extraordinarily high engagement rate. And of the people that used the concierge service or the mobile app to find their top doctors, 98% reported having a good experience. So that's something that you can hang your hat on of, hey, healthcare is a little easier now and also more financially rewarding, both in getting better quality care and getting that upfront cost paid for. Despite the upfront incentives, we generally see that employers are still going to save money significantly upfront on this plan. We just showed a nonprofit this week about how they could save enough money to make the plan completely free to employees while taking it from a, kind of an 80% actuarial value, goldish kind of plan to a 96% actuarial value, platinum plus kind of plan, where the employee has almost no out-of-pocket cost sharing, only in very rare scenarios would they even have to pay a dime, and that the plan had no employee contributions. So imagine in your recruiting and retention, being able to go to a candidate and say, oh, by the way, in addition to all the great things we told you about this job, you have an option to have a healthcare plan that's completely free to you and dramatically reduced for your families, and the first X $1,000s of your healthcare is completely free. So it's a new approach that is really going to make a difference. We are seeing it make a difference in the recruiting and retention with our clients that are using it. In fact, one of our clients, has experienced actually an 88% engagement rate with the app and a positive experience. And that is, contributing to the stickiness with their employer because their healthcare is so easy. So those are a couple of strategies to create some significant savings so that you can enhance your benefits. Now, here's how we would recommend actually using that money. First, we've got kind of 10 ideas here of how you could enhance your benefits. Of course, we're a big fan of these account-based plans, but only if they're very generously funded. Not at all a fan of a huge high deductible healthcare plan that you're not putting much money into the HSA. Let's say you gave them a $6,000 deductible and only put $1,000 into the HSA. That's just simply not viable for most employees. Their family does not have the ability to come up with that difference. And so dramatically increasing the quality of your plan using these account-based plans can be really effective. We work with one construction company, and due to a variety of strategies, including both of the ones that we showed you here, they are saving so much money that they essentially have a $3,500 deductible HSA, but they're funding $3,250 of that HSA. And so the employee only has to come up with $250 per family member. That's like 1990s healthcare out of pockets, right? So needless to say, the employees are pretty excited about that. The savings don't always look that extreme, but they can be. So, but there's lots of other ideas of how you could go about it. We are big fans of reducing the employee contributions. That's one of the biggest pain points. That's probably what your employees look at the most. If you aren't ready to commit to reducing contributions going forward, you can't quite take on that financial obligation, try instead a premium holiday. This is where when you go to your employees at open enrollment in late October, early November, you say to them, you have already paid your last healthcare premiums for the year. For the rest of the year, November and December, we are not going to take any more money out of your paychecks. You can use that money to fund your holidays. You can use that money to go on a trip, down payment on a house, whatever. It's, maybe 2 months isn't quite enough to get there, but, you can make an extra mortgage payment that month, maybe, if you are avoiding those family premiums. Another way is just to make the medical plan richer, like the construction company I described, where they only have a $250 out-of-pocket minimum. You could also go to things outside of benefits. You could use the savings for additional vacation days, for a sign-on bonus, for additional mental health care days. You could also use it to invest in a wellness program, whether that's something physical, or a lot of people are investing in add-on behavioral health programs right now that, we work with a coaching company we love, for example, that is kind of employees' first line of defense for mental health, that they can help identify that, hey, it seems like you're really struggling here. Have you thought about seeing a doctor about that? So, or a psychologist about that. You could increase your 401k company match. You could start a student loan debt repayment or a home down payment fund for your employees with this money. Even a lifestyle account where people can pay for massages and other things that really help them with their health can be really popular. So those are all ideas of why, of how you could use these savings. The sky's really the limit of how you could design a new benefit and wellness story around all of these enhancements. And so there's just so many reasons to focus on these effective benefit strategies. First and foremost, improved health outcomes for your employees is not a small thing. They are happier, healthier, and more productive when they're in good health. And so there's some really important stuff there. You're also, in addition to the savings, you can either bank those to the bottom line if you need them, or put them all into increased recruiting and retention kind of success. And then all of these things are going to increase your employee satisfaction, which makes your lives easier, but again, also makes employees stickier to your organization. So there's a lot of things that you can do. The status quo is not enough. Sometimes we'll see, when we take over a new client base, we'll let them know that they got a 5% renewal and they're like, oh, that's good enough. Let's move on and be done. We're like, whoa, 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 there's so much more you can do. You need to be thinking about how can you enhance your benefits and improve your recruiting position, because otherwise, the war for talent is going to leave you behind. So we encourage you to reach out to either of the firms that presented in this presentation, and we would love to share additional ideas with you and brainstorm with you. Thank you so much for being with us, and have a wonderful day.